The crystalline walls of the Valdorian throne room had not seen such chaos in 300 years. Guards stood frozen at their posts, their silver armor reflecting the shocked faces of nobles who whispered behind jeweled fans. At the center of it all, Princess Zara stood tall and defiant, her purple skin glowing with the same royal aura that had marked her birth 28 years ago. But she was not alone. Two small children pressed close to her sides, their tiny hands wrapped around hers with complete trust. The boy looked about 4 years old with the pointed ears of a Valdorian, but round brown eyes that sparkled with curiosity. The girl appeared older, perhaps 6, and her bronze skin seemed to shimmer between the deep purple of her mother's race and something altogether different. Behind them stood a human male. Queen Thera gripped the arms of her throne so tightly that the ancient crystal began to crack under her fingers. Her daughter, lost for 15 long years, had returned from the dead. But the sight before her challenged everything the Valdorian Empire had built over centuries of careful bloodline preservation. The human was not what anyone expected. He wore simple brown clothes that spoke of hard work and honest labor. His dark hair showed streaks of gray, and lines around his eyes suggested a man who had seen both joy and sorrow. Most shocking of all, he showed no fear as he faced the most powerful court in the galaxy. "Mother," Princess Zara said, her voice carrying across the silent throne room. The word echoed off the crystal walls like a bell. "I have returned." Lord Commander Vex, the Queen's chief advisor, stepped forward with his ceremonial staff raised. His voice boomed with authority. "Princess Zara, by the ancient laws of our people, you will explain your absence in the presence of these creatures." The human's jaw tightened at the word creatures, but he remained silent. The little girl moved slightly behind his leg, and he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder without looking away from the court. "These are my children," Zara announced, her chin lifted with royal pride. "Mira and Kai, and this is Ben, their father and my chosen mate." The throne room exploded into chaos. Nobles shouted over each other in outrage. Several courtiers fell back in shock, their elaborate headdresses tumbling to the polished floor. Guards shifted nervously, unsure whether they should arrest the human or protect the princess. "Impossible!" Lord Vex slammed his staff against the crystal floor. "The princess was promised to Prince Doran of the Nexus Worlds. This human has clearly kidnapped and corrupted our royal blood." Ben finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying a strength that cut through the noise. "I have never taken anything that was not freely given." Princess Zara chose her own path. Queen Thera raised her hand and immediate silence fell across the room. Her eyes, the same deep violet as her daughter's, studied the scene before her with centuries of wisdom. "Speak, daughter. Tell us where you have been for 15 years. Zara straightened, every inch the princess she had been raised to be. "My exploration ship suffered catastrophic damage in the void sectors. My crew died in the crash. I survived barely, but with injuries that left me without memory of who I was or where I came from." She gestured toward Ben with obvious affection. "Ben found me dying in the wreckage on his mining world. He carried me to his home, tended my wounds for months, and asked for nothing in return. When my memories returned 2 years later, I remembered my duties here. I also remembered the marriage you had arranged to a prince I had never met, in a political alliance I never wanted. Your personal desires are not relevant to the good of the Empire," Lord Vex interrupted. "You had duties. I chose a different duty," Zara cut him off. "The duty to my own heart and to the family I created with the man who saved my life." The little boy, Kai, tugged on Ben's shirt. "Papa, why are they angry?" He whispered in perfect Valdorian, though his accent carried something distinctly human. The sound of that word, Papa, spoken by a child who was clearly part Valdorian, sent fresh waves of shock through the court. Several nobles actually stepped backward as if the word itself might contaminate them. Ben knelt down to the boy's level, his movement smooth and natural. "They are surprised, little one. Sometimes people need time to understand new things." "Are we in trouble?" Mira asked, her voice small but brave. She looked around at all the staring faces with curiosity rather than fear. "No, sweetheart," Ben assured her, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "We are exactly where we need to be." Queen Thera watched this exchange with growing fascination. The human showed no submission, no fear, and no desire to curry favor with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Instead, his entire focus remained on the comfort and safety of his children. You dare to bring half-breed abominations before the throne of the Valdorian Empire? Duke Kestra, one of the most traditional nobles, stepped forward with disgust written across his features. This human has polluted our royal bloodline with his primitive genetics. Ben rose slowly, and for the first time something dangerous flickered in his eyes. My children are not abominations. They are the most precious things in this universe or any other. They are genetic mistakes that should never have been allowed to exist. Duke Kestra spat. The temperature in the throne room seemed to drop several degrees. Ben took one step forward and somehow, despite being surrounded by beings who could destroy him with a thought, he suddenly seemed like the most dangerous person in the room. Choose your next words very carefully, Ben said, his voice quiet but carrying absolute conviction. I have lost everything I ever loved once before. I will not allow it to happen again. Queen Thera held up her hand before Duke Kestra could respond. Ben of the mining world, she said, testing his name like she might taste unfamiliar food. You speak boldly for someone who stands in my court uninvited. Your Majesty, Ben replied, inclining his head slightly but maintaining eye contact. I came here because my wife wanted her children to know their grandmother. I came because Zara missed her mother every day for 13 years. I did not come to ask permission to love my family. And yet you have created a situation that threatens the stability of our entire empire, Lord Vex pointed out. The princess was promised to Prince Doran. Her marriage was to secure peace between our worlds. Peace built on the sacrifice of one person's happiness is not peace, Ben replied. It is slavery with better decorations. Gasps echoed through the throne room at his audacity. No one spoke to the Valdorian court this way. No one challenged their most sacred traditions so directly. Zara stepped forward, placing her hand on Ben's arm. Mother, I know my return complicates things. I know my choices have consequences, but I will not apologize for choosing love over duty, or for giving my children a father who would die for them without hesitation. Prince Doran will not accept this insult lightly, Lord Vex warned. He has been waiting 15 years for this marriage. His fleet surrounds our borders even now, expecting to finally claim his bride. Then he will be disappointed, Zara said firmly. I belong to myself and to my family. No treaty can change that. Queen Thara rose from her throne, her presence filling the vast chamber. She was ancient by human standards, nearly 500 years old, and her power was legendary across a dozen star systems. When she moved, reality itself seemed to bend around her. She walked down the crystal steps slowly, her robes flowing like liquid starlight. The court held its breath as she approached the strange family that had disrupted everything they thought they knew about their world. She stopped in front of Ben, studying him with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. He did not flinch under her gaze, did not bow deeper or beg for mercy. He simply stood there, one hand on his daughter's shoulder and the other on his son's head, ready to face whatever judgment came. You are either very brave or very foolish. Human, the Queen said finally. Probably both, Your Majesty, Ben admitted. But I am also very much in love with your daughter and very committed to my children. Those facts will not change regardless of what happens next. Queen Thara looked down at little Mira, who gazed back with eyes full of intelligence and curiosity. Child, what do you know of your heritage? Mama tells us stories about the crystal cities and the singing mountains, Mira answered confidently. Papa teaches us about the stars and how to fix things that are broken. We know we are part of two worlds. And which world do you prefer? The Queen asked. Mira tilted her head, considering the question with the seriousness only children could manage. I like the world where my family is together and safe. That is the only world that matters. From the mouths of babes, Queen Thera thought. She turned her attention to young Kai, who had been quietly observing everything with those remarkable human eyes. And you, little one, what do you think of our crystal palace? Kai looked around at the glittering walls and floating chandeliers with wonder. It is very pretty, grandmother. But it seems lonely. Our home on the mining world had better hugs. Despite herself, Queen Thera felt the corner of her mouth twitch upward. The child's innocent honesty cut through centuries of formal protocol like a blade through silk. She looked back at Ben, this human who had somehow captured her daughter's heart and given her grandchildren. She never expected to meet. Tell me, Minor, what did you see in my daughter that made you risk everything for her? Ben's expression softened as he glanced at Zara. I saw someone who was lost and afraid, who needed help. Later, I saw someone who was kind and intelligent and stronger than she knew. Eventually, I saw the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life learning to understand. And when her memories returned, when you learned she was a princess of the most powerful empire in the galaxy, I was terrified, Ben admitted honestly. Not of her power, but of losing her. I offered to let her go, to return to her duties and her royal marriage. She chose to stay. Why? Ben looked around the throne room, taking in the obvious wealth and power that surrounded them. Because I think she realized that being a princess in a palace is not the same thing as being truly valued. I may be just a minor, but I see her as she really is, not as a political tool or a symbol or a prize to be won. Queen Thara was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she had heard. The court waited in tense silence, knowing that whatever decision she made would reshape their world forever. Finally, she spoke. Lord Vex, clear the throne room. I wish to speak with my family in private. Your Majesty, the security protocols will be observed from outside these walls. The Queen cut him off. Go. Reluctantly, the nobles and guards filed out, leaving only the royal family and Ben in the vast chamber. Queen Thara walked to a side table and poured herself a cup of Valdorian tea, the simple domestic act somehow making her seem less intimidating. 15 years ago, my daughter disappeared and I thought I had lost her forever, she said quietly. Today she returns to me with a family I never expected and choices I do not understand. But I see something in her eyes that was never there before. She is happy. Zara stepped forward. Mother, let me finish, the Queen said gently. I have ruled for 3 centuries, Zara. I have made alliances and broken enemies and done everything necessary to protect our people. But I have also arranged marriages and sacrificed personal happiness for political necessity. I have wondered in my quiet moments if there might have been another way. She turned to Ben, who was still holding his children close. You present me with an impossible situation, human. Your very existence threatens treaties that have kept peace for decades. Your children represent a genetic mixing that our people have forbidden for generations. And yet, Ben prompted quietly. And yet my daughter glows with contentment. And my grandchildren speak of hugs and family, with the wisdom of those who have never doubted they were loved. Queen Thara set down her teacup. This creates a problem I cannot solve with traditional methods. What kind of problem? Zara asked, worry creeping into her voice. Prince Doran still expects his bride. Our treaty with the Nexus world still requires this marriage. If I simply declare the arrangement void, we risk war with a very powerful enemy. The Queen's expression grew serious. But I cannot and will not force you into a marriage you do not want, especially when you have already chosen your own path. Ben straightened. What do you need from me? I need to know if you are worthy of the trust my daughter has placed in you, Queen Thara replied. I need to know if a human can truly protect a Valdorian princess and raise children who belong to both worlds. How do I prove that? Queen Thara smiled for the first time since they had arrived, and it transformed her entire face. By passing a series of tests that will either demonstrate your worthiness or provide me with justification for your execution. The words hung in the air like a blade. Mira and Kai pressed closer to their father, sensing the sudden tension even if they did not fully understand it. What kind of tests? Zara demanded, stepping protectively toward Ben. Tests that will reveal his true character, the Queen replied. Tests that will show whether he truly loves you and the children, or whether he is simply a clever opportunist who has taken advantage of my daughter's gratitude. Ben knelt down and looked each of his children in the eyes. Mira, Kai, remember what Papa has always told you about being brave? Being brave does not mean you are not scared, Mira recited solemnly. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. That is right, sweetheart. Ben kissed both their foreheads and stood up. Your Majesty, I accept your tests. But I have one condition. The audacity of making demands on the Valdorian Queen should have been shocking, but Queen Thara found herself impressed despite herself. What condition? My children and Zara remain safe regardless of what happens to me. They are innocent in all of this. Agreed, the Queen said immediately. But understand, Ben of the mining world, these tests will push you to your absolute limits. They will reveal who you truly are when everything you love is at stake. Are you prepared for that? Ben looked at his wife and children, memorizing their faces as if he might never see them again. Then he looked back at the Queen with absolute determination. Your Majesty, I have already survived losing everything I loved once before. If there is even the smallest chance that passing your tests will give my family a future where they can be safe and happy, then I am ready for whatever you throw at me. Queen Thera nodded slowly, recognizing something in the human's eyes that she had not expected to find. Very well. The trials begin tomorrow at dawn. Rest tonight with your family. It may be the last peaceful evening you have for quite some time. As the royal family was escorted to guest quarters, Queen Thara remained alone in her throne room, staring at the crystal walls that had witnessed the rise and fall of so many dreams. Tomorrow, she would discover whether a simple human miner possessed the strength to protect her daughter and grandchildren. She had a feeling the answer would surprise them all. Dawn came early in the Crystal Palace, the twin suns casting rainbow patterns through the transparent walls. Ben stood at the window of their guest quarters, watching the light dance across surfaces that seemed to sing with their own inner music. Behind him, Zara slept peacefully with Mira and Kai curled up on either side of her, their small faces relaxed in dreams. A soft chime announced a visitor. Ben opened the door to find Queen Thera herself, dressed in simple gray robes rather than her formal regalia. Her presence still commanded respect, but she seemed more approachable somehow. "Walk with me," she said quietly. "The trials await, but first I would speak with you alone." They moved through corridors lined with living crystal that pulsed gently with each footstep. The palace was beautiful beyond description, but Ben found himself missing the rough stone walls of his mining station home. "Tell me about your life before my daughter," Queen Thera said as they walked. Ben was quiet for a moment, organizing thoughts he rarely shared. "I was married once before, Your Majesty. My wife Sarah and I worked the same mining station. We had a daughter, Emma. She was 7 years old. What happened to them? Cave in during a bad storm. The emergency systems failed. I was working a distant tunnel when it happened. By the time I dug through the rubble, they were gone." Ben's voice remained steady, but Queen Thara could hear the old pain beneath the calm words. "I thought my life was over. For 3 years I just existed. Work, sleep, work again. Nothing had meaning. And then my daughter arrived. And then Zara arrived, broken and dying, and suddenly I had a reason to fight again. Not for myself, but for someone who needed me. When she recovered and chose to stay, when we fell in love and had the children, I learned something important." "What was that?" Ben stopped walking and looked directly at the Queen. "I learned that love is not something you lose once and never find again. Love is something that grows stronger each time you choose to open your heart, even when it is terrifying to do so." Queen Thara studied this human who spoke of love with such certainty. "Are you ready to risk losing everything again?" "Your Majesty, the moment I allowed myself to love Zara and the children, I accepted that risk. Every day we are together is a gift, but I will not live in fear of losing them. Instead, I will work every day to be worthy of the time we have." They arrived at a large chamber with walls that shifted between transparent and opaque. In the center stood a simple metal chair facing a viewing screen. Queen Thara gestured for Ben to sit. "The first trial is honesty," she announced. "You will be connected to a truth monitor that reads not just your words but your emotions and intentions. I will ask you questions and the device will reveal any deception." Ben settled into the chair as thin silver bands extended to circle his wrists and temples. The metal felt cold against his skin, but he showed no fear. "Are you in love with my daughter?" Queen Thera asked. "Yes," Ben replied without hesitation. The screen beside them glowed soft blue, indicating complete truth. "Did you manipulate her emotions while she was injured and vulnerable?" "No. I was careful to maintain distance until she recovered her memories and could make informed choices." Blue light again. "Do you love her because she is a princess?" Ben actually smiled at that question. "Your Majesty, I fell in love with a woman who helped me repair mining equipment and sang off-key while cooking dinner. I did not learn she was a princess until 2 years later, and honestly, that news terrified me." The screen confirmed his honesty. "What do you want from our empire?" "Nothing," Ben said immediately. "I want to raise my children with their mother. I want them to know both sides of their heritage. I want to grow old with Zara and watch our grandchildren play in whatever garden we can give them. Your empire's wealth and power mean nothing to me, compared to my family's happiness." The truth monitor blazed with blue light so bright it was almost blinding. "Queen." Thara nodded slowly and deactivated the device. Most beings lie when connected to a truth monitor, even about small things. You did not even attempt deception. Lies are too hard to remember, Ben said simply. The truth is always easier. The second trial took place in a different chamber, this one designed to look like a busy marketplace. Holographic projections created the illusion of crowds, noise, and chaos. In the center of the artificial plaza, a child sat crying. This child is lost and afraid, Queen Thara explained. You have urgent business elsewhere. Your own family is waiting for you. What do you do? Ben did not hesitate. He walked directly to the crying child, knelt down to her level, and spoke gently. Hello there. What is your name? The child, though just a projection, seemed real enough. Lena, she sniffled. I cannot find my mama. Well, Lena, my name is Ben. I am very good at finding things that are lost. Would you like me to help you find your mama? For the next hour, Ben worked patiently to calm the child, asked careful questions about where she had last seen her mother, and methodically searched the simulated marketplace. He ignored several urgent messages that appeared on screens around the plaza. Messages claiming his family needed him immediately. Finally, he reunited the projection child with her projection mother, receiving grateful hugs before they disappeared. You chose to help a stranger instead of responding to your family's supposed emergency, Queen Thara observed. The messages were fake, Ben replied calmly. Zara and the children are safe in the palace. That child needed help right then. Besides, I want my own children to grow up in a universe where adults stop to help lost children, not one where everyone is too busy for basic kindness. The third trial was more complex. Ben found himself in a room with 3 doors. Behind the first door, Queen Thara explained, was enough wealth to buy a planet. Behind the second was advanced technology that could extend human life by centuries. Behind the third was immediate transport back to his mining world with his family. But they would be forbidden from ever contacting the Valdorian Empire again. Choose, the Queen commanded. Ben looked at each door for a long moment, then sat down on the floor in the middle of the room. I choose none of them, he said. That is not an option. Your Majesty, wealth without purpose is meaningless. Extended life without the people you love is torture, and taking my family away from their heritage would be stealing part of who they are. Ben leaned back against the wall. You are testing whether I am greedy or selfish or cowardly. I am none of those things. I am just a man who wants his family to be happy and safe and free to choose their own paths. Queen Thara stared at him for several long minutes. Finally, she waved her hand and the doors disappeared. Most beings choose one of the doors within minutes, driven by greed or fear or desire for power. You are the first to reject all the options. Because they were all wrong choices, Ben said simply. The fourth trial brought Ben face to face with his deepest fears. Using advanced Valdorian technology, Queen Thara created projections of Sarah and Emma, his lost wife and daughter from years past. They looked exactly as they had in life, and they spoke with voices he remembered from his dreams. You replaced us, projection Sarah said sadly. You forgot about us and found a new family. You promised you would always love me most, projection Emma added, her small voice breaking Ben's heart. But now you have other children. Ben closed his eyes tightly, his hands shaking with emotion. When he opened them again, there were tears on his cheeks, but his voice was steady. I loved you both with everything I had, he said to the projections. When you died, part of me died too. But the part that survived learned to love again, and that does not diminish what we had. Emma, sweetheart, loving Mira and Kai does not mean I love you less. My heart grew bigger, it did not replace you. He stood up and walked toward the projections, even though touching them would reveal they were not real. Sarah, you told me once that if anything happened to you, you wanted me to find happiness again. You said love was meant to be shared, not hoarded. Zara and the children are not replacements for you. They are the continuation of the love you taught me was possible. The projection smiled sadly and faded away. Queen Thara watched Ben wipe his eyes with the back of his hand. That was cruel, he said quietly. Yes, it was, she agreed, but it revealed something important. You honor your past while embracing your present. That is a rare gift. The final trial was the most dangerous. Queen Thara led Ben to a training facility where Duke Kestra waited with 2 of the palace's most skilled guards. The Duke's expression was filled with contempt and barely controlled rage. This human claims he can protect our princess, Duke Kestra announced. Let him prove it in combat. This is not a fair test, Ben said, studying his opponents. These guards are trained warriors with advanced weapons. I am a miner with basic self-defense skills. Life is not fair, Duke Kestra replied. If you cannot defend yourself, how can you defend my princess and her children? Ben looked at Queen Thara, who nodded grimly. This trial will continue until you yield or until you are unable to continue. The first guard attacked immediately, moving with inhuman speed and precision. Ben dodged the first strike but took a glancing blow to his shoulder that sent him stumbling. The second guard moved to flank him, and Ben realized quickly that this was not a contest he could win through strength or skill. Instead, he began to talk. You know, I understand why you are angry, he said to Duke Kestra while avoiding another attack. I am an outsider who has disrupted your traditions. But ask yourself this question. What kind of future are you fighting for? The first guard hesitated slightly at the unexpected comment, and Ben used the moment to sidestep another strike. Are you fighting for a future where Princess Zara is miserable in a political marriage? Where my children grow up believing they are mistakes? Where love is sacrificed for the sake of treaties that benefit no one except those in power? The second guard actually paused, confusion flickering across his face. Or are you fighting for a future where people can choose their own paths? Where love between different species creates new possibilities instead of new problems? Where children like Mira and Kai can bridge two worlds and make them both stronger? Duke Kestra shouted for the guards to continue their attack, but Ben could see doubt in their eyes now. He pressed his advantage not with violence but with words. I am not your enemy, he said directly to the guards. I am a father who wants his children to grow up in a universe where they are valued for who they are, not feared for what they represent. Is that not something worth protecting? The first guard lowered his weapon completely. Duke Kestra, this man speaks wisdom. Perhaps we should reconsider. You will follow orders. The Duke screamed, grabbing the guard's weapon and charging at Ben himself. What happened next surprised everyone, including Ben. As Duke Kestra swung the energy blade at his head, Ben's instincts kicked in. But instead of dodging away, he stepped forward and caught the Duke's wrist, using the older man's momentum to redirect the attack harmlessly away from both of them. I do not want to hurt you, Ben said, holding Duke Kestra's arm in a grip that was firm but not painful. But I will not let you hurt me either. My children need their father. For a moment the two men stared at each other. Then Duke Kestra's expression crumbled, and Ben realized the Duke was not angry at him personally. You do not understand, the Duke said brokenly. Prince Doran is not a patient man. When he learns of this insult, he will bring war to our people. Thousands will die because your princess chose love over duty. Ben released the Duke's arm gently. Then we find another solution. We make him understand that forcing an unwilling marriage serves no one's interests. We show him that there are better ways to secure peace than through the suffering of innocence. You would negotiate with Prince Doran? Queen Thara asked, stepping forward from where she had been observing. If it would protect my family and your people, yes, Ben replied without hesitation. I have learned that most conflicts come from misunderstanding and fear. Perhaps Prince Doran simply needs someone to help him see a different path. Duke Kestra stared at Ben in amazement. You would risk your life to speak with the man who considers you his greatest enemy? For my family's safety and the peace of this empire? Yes, I would. Queen Thara smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. The trials are complete. That evening, the entire royal court gathered in the throne room once again. Ben stood with Zara and the children, all of them uncertain about what the queen's decision would be. The children had spent the day exploring the palace with their mother, and their excitement about the crystal gardens and singing fountains had charmed even the most traditional nobles. Queen Thara rose from her throne, her presence commanding absolute attention. I have tested this human who claims my daughter and dares to call himself father to my grandchildren. I have examined his honesty, his compassion, his priorities, his loyalty, and his courage. The court waited in tense silence. In 15 years of ruling, I have met emperors and warlords, scientists and philosophers, beings of great power and greater ambition, but I have never met anyone quite like Ben of the mining world. She looked directly at Ben, her ancient eyes warm with something that might have been admiration. He possesses something that all our technology and all our power cannot create. A heart that loves without condition and grows stronger with each test. He has shown me that humanity's greatest strength is not their intelligence or their adaptability, It is their capacity to choose love over fear, again and again, even when it costs them everything. Queen Thera descended from her throne and approached Ben, who knelt respectfully but kept his eyes on hers. Ben of the mining world, I name you Ben of House Valdor, prince consort to my daughter and father to my heirs. I welcome you into our family not because you have passed my tests, but because you have shown me what it means to love someone completely. The crowd erupted in surprised murmurs, but the queen raised her hand for silence. Furthermore, I declare that Mira and Kai represent the future of our people. They carry the best of both worlds in their hearts, and they will be raised to bridge the gap between human and Valdorian. They will be heirs not just to our empire, but to a new way of thinking about what family and love can accomplish. She turned to address the entire court. As for Prince Doran and the treaty he expects, I will send an ambassador to explain our position. If he chooses war over understanding, then we will face that challenge together. But we will no longer sacrifice the happiness of our people for the convenience of our enemies. Little Mira stepped forward and tugged on the queen's robes. Grandmother, does this mean we can stay? Queen Thara knelt down to the child's level, her formal demeanor melting away completely. Yes, little star. You can stay as long as you want. This is your home now if you choose it to be. Kai ran to Ben and was swept up in his father's arms. Papa, did we win? Ben hugged his son tightly, looking around at the crystal palace that would never feel as warm as their little mining station home, but which might become something even better. A place where love was valued above tradition, where differences were celebrated instead of feared. Yes, little man, Ben said, his voice thick with emotion. We all won. As the court celebrated around them, Ben pulled Zara close and watched their children laugh with their grandmother. He thought about Sarah and Emma, and he knew they would be happy that love had found a way to grow and flourish again. Sometimes the greatest victories were not won with weapons or wealth or power. Sometimes they were won with patience and kindness and the simple courage to keep loving, even when the whole universe seemed determined to make that choice as difficult as possible. In the crystal palace of the Valdorian Empire, under the light of twin suns, a human miner and an alien princess proved that love truly could conquer all.